Good evening. Welcome to the Red Hook Town Board meeting of Tuesday, February 11th. May I ask you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Chris, we do hear you coming through. Okay, very good. Welcome, everyone. If you'd be kind enough to scroll over to the big screen, we can show the folks at home watching on cable or YouTube or through the Panda app what we'll be discussing tonight. We have a public hearing, continuing on the Community Development Block Grant. It's an annual program that we apply for grants for. We are going to discuss, once again, applying for the sidewalk that would continue over to Hannaford and any other ideas that the public would like us to consider. We'll be discussing that as the first item on the agenda. We'll be discussing and entertaining resolutions related to local law number 1 of 2025. We'll be discussing continuing with the community choice aggregation program. We have our annual police intermunicipal agreement, and we have already approved the funding for the upgrades to the grid for the Cookingham Community Solar Project. Right now we are just blessing the contract, which frankly we don't have much say over, between the utility and the municipality for those upgrades. A very brief resolution assigning a private road name. Bard College, really, we're not assigning the name. They have to come through us to get approval, which is simply, we indicate that there's not a duplicate name or a name that would be confusing. That's true of any streets that are created or private roads within our municipality. And then lastly, we are entertaining a resolution to authorize an agreement with our financial advisor who has moved to a different firm. And so we are entertaining that as well. Very good. We start off each meeting, first meeting of the year, with a snapshot of the town's finances. This is for the period ending January 31st. We started with an opening balance of just under $9 million, receipts of 1.22. Disbursements of nearly 1.4 million. We closed the month with a balance of 8,811,558, and we don't have budget adjustments for this meeting. We will for the next meeting, and also the second meeting in February. You'll be getting the annual update from me for 2024 financials. And as I mentioned earlier, the preview is that we're in better shape than we were even starting 2024 with all the purchases that we've made. So with that being said, is there a motion to approve the supervisor's report?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. We also have the clerk's report as well as an abstract. Deanna, would you be kind enough to read that?
The town clerk's report for the period of January 1st, 2025 to January 31st, 2025. Total local shares remitted, $6,576.80. Amount paid to New York State Agriculture and Markets for the Spay-Neuter Program, $59. Amount paid to New York State Department of Health for marriage license, $45. Amount paid to New York State Environmental Conservation for hunting and fishing license, $82.20. Total state, county, and local revenues, $6,763. And I hereby certify that vouchers numbered 32963 to 33078 totaling $227,758.06 processed in the month of the month of January 2025 are an accurate reporting of the abstracts approved for payment by the town board.
Thank you, Deanna. Is there a motion to accept the clerk's report?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. Very good. Public comments. Would anybody like to make any public comments before we go ahead with our public hearing? Going once. Going twice. Okay, hearing none. Let's jump right into our 7:35 public hearing on the Community Development Block Grant Program. Deanna, if you'd be kind enough to read the notice.
Notice of public hearing, Town of Red Hook. Please take notice that a public hearing will be held by the Town Board of the Town of Red Hook on February 11th, 2025 at 7:35 p.m. local time at the Town Hall, 7340 South Broadway, Red Hook, New York, to hear all interested persons regarding the 2025 Community Development Block Grant application. Input from citizens and groups is solicited regarding the town's application. All interested persons will be given an opportunity to be heard in person or by directing comments in writing to the Town Board of the Town of Red Hook for receipt in advance of the hearing. All reasonable accommodations will be made for persons with disabilities. In such case, please notify the town clerk in advance. By order of the Town Board of the Town of Red Hook, dated January 29th, 2025, Deanna Cochran, Town Clerk, Town of Red Hook.
Very good. Thank you very much, Deanna. This time I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
And would anyone like to speak on this topic? Okay. So as a reminder, we have applied for this project in the past, but we have a few other improvements, CDBG projects in the works at the time, some of which we are wrapping up and in the middle of. Would be perhaps a good time to go out and apply for funds again. And Brandy, if you'd be kind enough, our engineer Brandy Nelson from Ty and Bond is here. If you'd give the public just a 2-minute refresher of what we are discussing, and I'll do my best to be the cursor.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. So as the supervisor said, I'm Brandy Nelson. I'm a licensed professional engineer with Ty and Bond, and we're the town's consulting engineer. And so as the supervisor indicated, the concept project that we've laid out is a sidewalk connector that closes a gap in the sidewalk between the sidewalk on the east side of Route 9 and it would progress in the right-of-way of Route 9 southward towards the St. Margaret's property, which is a town property, and then it would head eastward along the property line that is shared between Hardscrabble Plaza, St. Margaret's, and Hannaford. There is currently what we call a desire line or footpath that's worn over time, so people are clearly traversing this now, but it's somewhat poorly defined and it's not illuminated, it's not handicap accessible, and when the sidewalk intersects with the Hannaford Drive, it would turn southward and connect to the existing sidewalk that terminates just north of the Hannaford. So it would close a gap. It's approximately 800 linear feet. The sidewalk is proposed to be concrete and 5 feet wide with bollard illumination. So that would provide a more accessible route for those people who are trying to walk to the Hannaford and would keep them from sort of traversing the muddy path that's there now. We had put a concept together last year for this and an estimate of cost for this. The estimate of cost was $390,000 at that point in time. This project area is located within the low to moderate income quadrant of the town, which means the town would be eligible for what's called a public facilities project. And under the Community Development Block Grant Program through Dutchess County, a public facilities project is eligible for up to $200,000. And so if the town were to move forward with this, we'd recommend asking for that full amount.
Terrific. And just for the folks at home, there's some numbers here. The proposed sidewalk area would be alongside the orange color. It turns here, somewhere between 2 and 3, makes its way over to 4. This is on Hannaford Drive, at which point it connects with an already existing sidewalk there. So half of that area is sidewalk. It was contemplated to continue, Hannaford Drive was, northward. This would at least marry into that spot. Okay. Thoughts, questions for Brandy? 390.
What's the grant cap?
200,
That's what I thought.
yes.
Robert, did you acknowledge that you have some written comments? Just wanted to note that for the record.
Yes, I will. Yeah, we did receive some written comments, and those comments relate to St. Margaret's and some other things, including establishing a committee. I think we've covered this at several meetings, that we will be establishing a committee once the building is safe to be occupied and to have people go in it. And we are very close to that stage. It also has some other recommendations, but we did receive one written comment related to this project. We also did receive some correspondence from the neighboring property owner expressing some concern about whether or not their parking would be utilized if there were to be events at St. Margaret's, and we'll be discussing in just a minute parking options, as we have been for some time now. Okay. Anything? We all set?
But we get it this year.
I think that, the county's been very happy with the progress that they've seen, and let's hope they are inspired to award us this. Is very important. If you're folks who need a sidewalk to get to your grocery store don't have it, then the options become very limited for them. Okay, resolution number
11.
11. On the 11th, approving the adoption of local, no, that's not the one we want. Where are we?
It's above.
That's it? Just pass it.
It's still the 11th on the 11th, authorizing submission of application for the fiscal year 2025 Dutchess County Community Development Block Grant. We're participating in the consortium, as we always do. We are eligible for up to $200,000 to improve accessibility by installing a walkway from Route 9 easterly along St. Margaret's to the terminus of Hannaford Drive, including the certifications included therein. The submission of said application to the Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development is hereby authorized, and we want to thank the department for all their help. We report each year about all the grants we get, all the projects we conduct, and we don't do it alone. We do it with their collaboration and their assistance. With that being said, I would like to move resolution number 11. Who would like to second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
That's you, William. Thank you very much. Okay, Brandy's here. Can we skip around and do a little discussion while you're here, so we don't make you wait till the very end? Or would you rather wait till the very end, Brandy?
I greatly appreciate you.
You would like to wait till the very end? Okay.
Give it a long drive home.
All right. Here we go. Be patient with me if you would. We're going to get to parking options, if I do this correctly. Okay, for the folks at home, tell me which page you would like me to start on.
That's perfect.
And I'm gonna ask you, Brandy, if you wouldn't mind actually going to the screen for this one.
Oh, sure.
Because it's not as clear as it might otherwise be for the public.
Okay, so I can't remember if it was the December meeting or the January meeting, but a couple of months ago, I appeared before the board to explain to you that for the St. Margaret's site, the town had a block grant from, I believe, 2022 to make accessibility improvements to the exterior of St. Margaret's. And that project is accessible parking, so one accessible parking space, the accessible aisle, and an accessible walkway and ramp into the building, as well as the actuators that are needed to open the doors. And so we've put together construction documents for that. In the meantime, we had a second grant for ADA improvements inside the building. We were having some challenges with building restoration and getting the timing of use of that grant along with some of the interior building restoration underway. And so we made a request to the county if we could switch the grant to outside improvements. So that's what we're doing. We're going ahead with outside improvements. However, it's come to our attention, if you've been up to St. Margaret's, there's not really a well-defined parking space. So we're only proposing right now to have a single parking stall. And there is between the St. Margaret's building and the existing garage, just sort of a gravel area that people park somewhat haphazardly. So when we had put together a master plan for St. Margaret's, we'd included a concept that added some more organized parking between St. Margaret's building and the garage, and then a little bit more parking to the south of the garage. And what I had brought to you a couple of months ago was that it might be efficient to have one contract that is both the outside ADA improvements as well as these parking improvements. And I believe it was Board Member Kane who asked me what was the cost difference between a gravel parking area versus an asphalt parking area, so that you guys can have an understanding of the total costs associated with that. Just for context, the layout is as shown on the screen. This is St. Margaret's here. This is the existing garage. This is the ADA parking and the accessible ramp that would be created. Then there would be 13 additional spaces that would be created. And the area is relatively level. It's free from trees now. There's one sort of hazard white pine that we've had an arborist look at that would probably come down. But other than that, we leave the existing trees. And so we went ahead and we put together some costs associated with the two parking areas. Adding a gravel parking area to the scope of work for the base project, which is the accessible, would increase the cost by about $75,000. Making that paved, and the area that would be improved is this dotted hatched area here, would be about $125,000. So it's about a $50,000 difference between the asphalt and the gravel. So what we're looking for from the board is a decision on whether or not you want to go forward with adding the parking component, and if you would rather do gravel or asphalt. Our goal would be to finish up the bid package and get that back to you next month so that you could put it out to bid for spring construction.
You do like the idea of paving, right? For easy maintenance
I do.
and defined areas.
Yeah.
Keeping the gravel.
Well, it's our property, it's a historic property, it's an important property for the town, and I think we should do the most we can, to the extent we can afford it, to make it accessible. And if it's going to be a space that is going to be utilized more than what it has been before and for other things, I think it's easier to maintain an asphalt. I think I did ask you about permeable though previously, and not so much the issue of cost, but my experience in the past when I was on the planning board is that most people don't make it in batches small enough.
Very small, yeah. The only other option would be like a grass paved type system. So we sometimes will do a parking lot where the stalls are a permeable system that's a grass, it's a grid of heavy duty polyethylene that's filled with gravel and soil, and then grass seed is planted on top of it. The drive aisle is usually still paved though, because there's a lot more wheel movement there and it just chews up the grass. So that's a hybrid alternative. It still has some challenges with plowing. You have to be very careful not to rip that out of the,
Out of the ground.
yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I think paving seems like it's easier to maintain. I think it's also probably over the long term going to be a more accessible option as well, just in terms of like a surface for people to walk on. It's not going to get ruts or potholes in the same way that gravel might. So to me, that's a more appealing option.
Are there any drainage issues related to pavement?
No, I mean, technically gravel and pavement are both considered impervious.
Oh, they both are?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
so you don't get any like environmental credit really for having it.
Sorry to ask.
Okay, well, I think, you know, we got some feedback from Christine when she was here. It'd be lovely to do permeable, but I'm familiar with the costs associated with that.
It's quite a bit more to do a permeable, yeah. You know, our recommendation is to go forward with some sort of parking area at this time. There's a lot of efficiencies in just the construction and the bidding process. It makes it a little bit bigger project, which makes it a little bit more desirable to contractors. So that's I think that's beneficial to the town.
Well, it's also timely because I think we hope to wrap this up. I know we've been saying that for the last year, but we hope to wrap up the work at St. Margaret's so that we can reconstitute that committee. We have about 5 committees that we're looking at, you know, repopulating and reimagining. We'd like that committee to be focused on programming as opposed to, you know, maintaining or building improvements. And so I think, and obviously it's appropriate to have parking available for the public to come see the building.
Right.
And for that committee to meet. So, yeah, I agree with my colleagues. I think we should go ahead and move forward with preparing the bid specs, and we'll make a budget adjustment at our next meeting to allow for that. But yeah, let's go ahead and do that then, shall we?
Okay, we'll finalize the opinion of construction costs and get that back over to you and move forward with preparing the bid package with the attorney. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Brandy. We appreciate it.
Appreciate it as well.
And very exciting. We're getting there. Any day now.
Is there anything else you needed me for?
I think that's it. I think we will, I think we're good. Thank you, Brandy.
You're welcome. I'll see you next month.
Stay healthy.
I'm saying.
Yeah, thanks. You too.
Yeah. And we mean it when we say stay healthy. Boy, dropping like flies here. Okay. Next up on the agenda, we have local law number 1 of 2025. Let's go through just recounting for the folks at home or here at tonight's meeting. We've had 3 or 4 public hearings, several iterations of the law. We've had plenty of input and have made quite a few changes based upon the input that we've received on the law as it relates to, for example, where cannabis dispensaries are permitted in town. We got some good feedback from both our local planning board and county planning to take a look at how many places would be available under under the law. We simplified it, and we have, I think one of the suggestions we got from our own local planning board was just put it in the same districts as liquor stores, and I don't think they realized, but they do now, that it was proposed for the same districts as liquor stores in the HB and the other business district. We received input from the boat club as it relates to marinas. They wanted us to put some definitions in there for things like boat ramps. We thought pretty much people knew what a boat ramp was, but we did make those changes. What we've proposed there along the riverfront is to not allow, this is based upon recommendations coming out of the old LWRP and the new one, proposed LWRP, to keep recreational use of the Hudson River but not commercialize it. And so there has not been a marina there in Berrytown, and so we are maintaining that change, that we don't want to allow marinas there. The boat club and its activities are, of course, different than a marina, and what they're doing there now is grandfathered. So we've made changes with that. We've got some input also from our Ag and Open Space Committee. They concurred with 2 out of 3 things. One of the things that they wanted us to consider was farm labor. So for the folks at home, just to remind you, almost a year ago we placed a moratorium in 3 areas as it relates to DEC wetlands, because we knew a change was afoot from the state and we didn't want people to get caught in between the new and old regulations. The TNDCC here, we were about to embark on establishing a sewer district in the commercial corridor, and so we didn't want people putting in individual septic systems because that would limit the demand for a central sewer, and we didn't want to be in a position where we had to buy farms on a, sort of on a dime, if you will, as soon as they went up for sale, because we were trying to protect them from inappropriate levels of subdivision and development. And so we have changed the density that is allowable now on the agricultural business districts, on those that are not under a farmland protection plan under easement. And so the Ag and Open Space Committee has asked us to also take a look at farm labor and how farm labor would be impacted, housing, on the ABD parcels that take avail of the limited development option, but do not have a conservation easement on them. And so, we looked at 2 things. First of all, farm labor housing, the code, it really resides, I think it's chapter 44 in our code, speaks to farm labor housing in other districts, and I think we'll need to address that pretty quickly because it's in it's legacy zoning and it's in all the wrong districts where it's allowed. Also, I don't think it makes sense for us to allow for significant farm labor housing on unprotected farms, because when and if they do end up getting turned over for, say, residential development or subdivision, then what happens to those multifamily units, for example? But that's something I think that the Comp Plan Committee, Update Committee, maybe should take a look at with input from the Ag and Open Space Committee, how we can sort of balance those 2 interests of making sure that there's farm labor, first of all, and that there's a place for those folks to live, whether they're seasonal workers or year-rounders. But I'm not ready to allow for a lot of farm labor when the farms themselves are not being committed to being farms in the future. It doesn't seem to make sense. We'll be left with lots of non-conforming residential.
I didn't get the sense of what sort of scale they were recommending to be permitted. I think that's one thing to consider as a part of this, because, you know, it's one thing to say we want to build 2 or 3 houses that are going to house whatever number of people. It's a different thing to say we're going to build, you know,
Right.
20 or something like that, right? Like the
Right.
scale, I think, really matters for something like this.
Yeah.
I think in principle, it's a good idea to permit the farm operation to house its workers.
Yeah.
That's a good model in a lot of ways, especially with the recommendation from the Ag and Space Committee. I think it's something we should consider, but I also recognize your point about
Yeah.
if they're not under conservation, then,
Yeah.
you know, you know, I don't want to question the good faith
Right.
of that, but it's something we want to consider
does-
from a long-term development.
But we
standpoint.
I think there was a concession made on our part that if we were going to go from 10 to 40 acres, that we would allow additional structures within the farmstead.
A little bit more.
Yeah, sort of proportionally to, so that offsets, you know, and when I saw those comments, that's what I was thinking, that, I mean, it doesn't fully address it, but it's a step in that
It
direction.
is. It doesn't solve the issue where you have a farm that's very productive, very active, produce farm where you have, say, 20 or 30 farm workers. The law doesn't really, you know, and then you get into, you know, ag and markets and so on and so forth. We'll have to find a way to accommodate it, but I think for now, for this limited development subdivision, and again, this just really deals with subdivision right now, and it's consistent with our comp plan to really discourage subdivision of our farmlands. And so I think those are pretty much the changes. We did have requests for some definitional change on wetlands, I think from the developer of the preserve at Lakeskill. We did make some changes to that definition. We did make a request, once again, I think for the second time, to try to understand how the proposed law would at all impact their project, which was approved 10 years ago, I believe, almost 10 years ago, in 2015. We haven't gotten back any response to that. All right, let's just note for the record, the planning board did meet, did do their LWRP consistency. I want to go through, once again, if you wouldn't mind, part 2 and 3, we did it at our previous meeting. Slight tweaks. Some of the things that occurred here, and I'll just read from the narrative. First of all, on part 2, any comments, folks, on that? I know we went through all of this at our last meeting. Any follow-up? Okay. Our LWRP, we went through ours. We did not go through the planning boards because we didn't have it because of their scheduling. We do have it now. There's a very lengthy discussion about marinas in here, by the way, that our planner talked about how marinas were only allowed in 5-acre parcels or more, and there's only one in that area. And the boat club, which was concerned about it, they don't even have 5 acres, so they couldn't, if they wanted to, turn into a marina. Not to mention it's very shallow there and it wouldn't be conducive. Okay, from the planning board, their LWRP consistency, did you get a chance to review that? There's the resolution. Any questions? No? Okay, it's very similar to what we discussed. All right, I'd like to direct you to part 3 with an attachment referencing the comp plan, centers and green spaces, our open space plan, the LWRP, the community preservation plan, the town planning for resilient connected natural areas, that was our habitat plan, Dutchess County, the Greenway Compact. Very lengthy seeker part 3 narrative. Any questions about that? Adding new definitions for dock. Removing proposed changes to the zoning law's definition of wetlands. Changing proposed special use permit conditions for cannabis, retail, clarifying specific facilities that are allowable at Bill Plan. We identified no potentially significant adverse environmental impacts in preparation of the part 2. Part 3 discusses the effects potentially on historic and archaeological resources. The only impact category that was checked, yes, was in part 2 of the 18 impact assessment questions. 17 were answered no, and 1 was answered yes for number 10, impact on historic and archaeological resources, and that's only because that area of town has numerous individual structures and sites listed on the National Register. And so it's yes because of the proximity. Okay. Unless there are any other questions about our secret review, once again, we received plenty of written comments. I think we've addressed them all. At this time, I would like to entertain a resolution on adopting a neg deck and looking for the resolution in the hard copy. Okay, we'll just read from part 3.
Yep.
Thank you. That's resolution number 12, adopting a determination of non-significance for local law zoning amendments. Whereas there has been presented to the town board local law number D3 proposed of 2024, updating and amending the town zoning law, including a clarification presented at our last meeting, January 29th. Whereas on November 20th, the town board classified the proposed action as a type 1 action under seeker, and we declared our intent to be lead agency. The town board has reviewed a full environmental assessment form and coastal assessment form, and I referenced that in your packets, for the proposed action, and we've reviewed a draft FEA part 2 and 3. The town board has considered the criteria and thoroughly analyzed all identified relevant areas of environmental concern. We've referred the zoning law amendments to the planning board on November 21st. We also referred it to Dutchess County Planning and Development and received comments from both boards. We've reviewed the proposed zoning law amendments and their consistency with the town's local waterfront revitalization program. We have now reviewed a draft notice of determination of non-significance, what's referred to as a negative declaration, meaning it's negative for any bad environmental or significant bad environmental impacts, in the form that's on file with the town clerk, setting forth all the reasons for that determination. Therefore, the town board of the town of Red Hook adopts a negative declaration and determines that the proposed action will not result in any significant adverse environmental impacts, and that a draft environmental impact statement will not be prepared. and authorizes and directs the town clerk to distribute a copy of this resolution to any involved and interested agency, the town supervisor, and any person that has requested a copy, and to make all other findings as required by law. That's Resolution 12, and I so move.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. At this point, I want to thank everybody who's given us input on local law number 1, 2025. And we will entertain a motion for resolution number 13. There's my hard copy.
Mr. Supervisor, could I
Yes,
ask you
ma'am.
to just make that LWP motion, please, first?
LWRP,
Yes, please.
okay.
You're going to make those findings before you
Yeah.
proceed with considering the next.
I did reference them as part of the neg deck, but I'd be happy to do that. We did review our consistency document at our last meeting. And any questions about that, folks? No, okay. Whereas the town of Red Hook, we have 2 LWRPs, reference to the planning board. The town of Red Hook adopted a LWRP program back in 1995. It has been updated and is under review by DOS, by the way, based upon our grant-funded project over the last several years. The form is designed, this form that we are approving now, to assist the town board in making a consistency determination. It lists 44 different policies of the LWRP. Applicants are requested to make a preliminary assessment of the project's consistency by completing the attached table. Section VC of the LWRP states that if the agency determines the proposed action would cause a substantial hindrance to the achievement of the policy, such action shall not be undertaken unless the agency determines with respect to the proposed action that no reasonable alternatives exist which would permit the action to be undertaken in a manner which will not substantially hinder the achievement of the LWRP policy, standards, and conditions. The action would be undertaken in a manner which will minimize all adverse effects on the LWRP policy, standards, and conditions, and the action will result in an overriding town, regional, or statewide public benefit. Town of Red Hook Town Board has reviewed this proposed action against the policies of the LWRP and has determined that the proposed action is consistent with those policies. And I so move. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now that we are finished with that formality, let's get to the resolution as it relates to the local law. A proposed form, I think I read to you already, was delivered back in November. Public hearing was held December 10th and continued at later dates. Based upon the information presented at those hearings and the town's own study of the matter, it was proposed and presented to this board an amended form of such local law. In fact, a couple of amended iterations pursuant to a resolution of the town board back on December 10th and revised, duly held meeting on December 30th. And all parties in attendance were permitted an opportunity to speak on behalf or in opposition to said proposed law. We referred it under Section 239, as I mentioned before, to the County Planning and Development, and they reported it was a matter of local concern, and they did contribute some comments. Whereas the Planning Board and the town's own study of the matter proposed and presented to this board an amended form of the local law, T2. of 2024, a local law updating and amending the town zoning code, and then pursuant to a resolution on the 30th December regarding the revised proposed local law, excuse me, duly held on January 14th at our last meeting, was the final public hearing on this matter, and all parties in attendance were permitted an opportunity to speak on behalf or in opposition. Local Law D3, the final iteration, entitled Updating and Amending the Town Zoning Law, in the form on file of the town clerk. At the January 14th meeting, we continue the public hearing, and we have a revised proposed local law number 1 of 2025 at January 29th meeting, 7:35, and continue the public hearing then. All parties in attendance were permitted to have an opportunity. So the final public hearing was January 29th, not what I earlier referenced. At its meeting, a clarification was laid on the desk as it pertains to the definition of wetlands. And at its meeting on February 3rd, the planning board recommended a finding that the action is consistent with the town's LWRP. Based on the information presented to the board, including comments of the planning board, Department of Planning and Development, and the town's own study of the matter, and the input from the public, the town board has determined that the adoption of the proposed zoning amendments as revised as of the date hereof and on file with the town clerk are necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of town residents and to bring the town zoning law into conformance with the Greenway Connections, Greenway Compact Program and Guides for Dutchess County Communities pursuant to Chapter 17 of this code, and with any applicable state and federal law, and are consistent with the town comprehensive plan. And for the folks at home, any zoning action that we take needs to be consistent with our overall comprehensive plan for the community. Whereas, based on the information, the board has determined that the proposed action is consistent with LWRP. Now, therefore, the town board hereby adopts said local law D3 proposed of 2024 with a clarification proposed January 29th, 2025 on file with the town clerk, now to be referred to as local law number 1 of 2025, a local law updating and amending the town zoning law. It's a lot of words. Who would like to move local law number 1?
I would like to move that.
William. This is resolution 14? Are we on
13.
14?
Oh, I don't have a resolution for the LWRP,
No, this is,
so it'd be 13. This would be 13 then. Wasn't it just a vote?
yeah, it was just a vote. This
Then
is
this is
13.
13.
Thank you. Sorry. Bill, I interrupted you.
No, it's fine.
You moved?
I moved.
Jacob? Second. All in favor? Aye. Again, thank you everyone for your input on this matter. All right, moving right along. We are now at the point where we are going to discuss community choice aggregation. So for the folks at home, if you were not watching at the last meeting, the town of Red Hook has lots of clean energy and energy efficiency programs. One of them is the community choice aggregation. It deals with just the supply portion of your bill. We joined with other municipalities to procure, just like the utility does, the energy supply. We stand in the shoes of Central Hudson in this case, and we go out to bid with our fellow municipalities, and we get quotes on a different energy supply product. We've had general indications that the energy pricing will be better, a little bit better perhaps than in our last contract period, but still somewhat elevated for either 100% New York State renewable or 50% New York State renewable, with the other 50% likely to come from renewable sources, but just not within New York State. They could also be renewable energy credits. We have to entertain a memo of understanding, which I'm scrolling to get to for the public so they can see. And we discussed that we had a bias towards wanting to close that gap between what essentially is the dirty supply that Central Hudson offers, and the clean energy supply that we wanted to perhaps use as the default of 50%. And we need to authorize Joule Assets, which is the administrator of this program. This is now our 4th contract, I believe, if we were to move forward with them. And this is the program that many of you ask about, opting in versus opting out. The way the state and the Public Service Commission have structured this program is it's unfortunately an opt-out only, because they are trying to get the economies of scale that the utility, or, you know, I like to use the example of Costco. The only reason Costco can get prices lower is because their suppliers know that they're dealing in tremendous volume, and the same is true of aggregate, which is what the A of CCA stands for. What the aggregate can do for pricing. So that's a lot of words to say. We have an MOU, we have an energy supply agreement, which is almost finished, and we did discuss the 50% is the default. One of the things that I heard is one of the municipalities is contemplating putting in target amounts. If the bids come in at X cents per kilowatt hours or less, then the municipality will move forward, which seems like something we should entertain, or at least consider.
Is that being used as a negotiation, or like sort of like soliciting bids that are going to meet those metrics, or is that something that's safeguarding the municipality?
I think safeguarding the municipality so that, I mean, it could do both, I guess. It all depends on what the energy suppliers, if they're really informed as to what
Municipalities are looking for.
Right, what the municipalities are looking for.
Because at this stage, this resolution wouldn't be, saying we're moving forward with it. Yeah, it's more just authorizing them to solicit bids, knowing that we're interested in the program.
True, but it doesn't hurt to
Yeah.
send the message out there like, we're interested if you can meet this or less.
Yeah.
An incentive.
Incentive. And if they don't, I mean, we'd have to come back and then see if we still wanted to move forward, depending on what the bids are.
Because I kind of wonder whether, like, how that sort of works for Joule as they're soliciting these bids, right? It's something that one or two municipalities are saying, maybe not if you're not going to reach this benchmark, but I don't know. It's the same sort of thing, the sort of conglomerate of municipalities, if everybody opts in to putting that language in as opposed to just one or two, does that actually affect things?
I don't know how it will affect the bidders' behavior. I think that's really the question is, will it be accomplishing something or not? It certainly would be, I think we've done this before where we've had, if not, when we've gone out for some capital projects, use the engineer's estimate of probable cost to help message to the bidders that we're really only interested in you if you can meet a certain threshold or less, obviously.
Do we know what that threshold was set at?
I mean, I may have heard something like 10 or 15% less than what was, you know, again, it's all, and for the folks at home, you know, we do this on our own all the time. We go out for public bidding. It's required by law. It's the way that we can get the best, you know, the best pricing for you. It's your money after all. It's the only way we actually find out what the true cost of something will be, but it also allows us the opportunity to reject bids. In this case, we're in a consortium, so it's slightly different than that. I mean, I'd be open to, I don't know that I have the chart on the screen. That was from last time, but maybe 10% less than what they had in there. I can jump back. You all will be patient with me for a minute. I can go back to the previous meeting, can't I? And this is just indicative pricing. Where were we? Okay. We made some changes to the ESA. You've seen that red line.
Yeah, you had the chart with the costs. There were three, wasn't there three?
Was it near the end? Or was it the addendum? Cool. No, it wasn't at the beginning, was it?
What are you looking for?
There it is. I found it. Thanks, Chris. The indicative pricing, so I thought it was 11, 12, something. So for the folks at home, if you were not watching for the last meeting, what these numbers are, these are just some ideas of what the current pricing was at the time that they were trying to give us an idea of what pricing would be. If you were to go out and on your own and try and get, on a retail level, get 100% renewable, you'd probably pay about 13, just the supply portion, 13 cents kilowatt hour. Because it's an aggregate, you could save about a penny. If you were to do a mix, a blend of 50% renewable, try to get it on your own, it'd be about 12 cents. Again, because it's a consortium and has some buying power, maybe 11 cents. Central Hudson, conventional, last 12 months, about 9. Although I did hear if you be patient, I thought I heard that there was, for February, it was 10 something. Let's go to the videotape, as they say. Yeah, February. So that's the February energy supply pricing from Central Hudson. February tends to be on the high side, you know, and it has been a cold winter as well. So the gap there for this particular month wouldn't be a lot, but. I'd be in favor of putting some targets, I don't know.
What do you propose?
10.5 on 50%, 11.5 on 100%. So that would be, because it's not really 11, I think it's 11 and change. It's only to 2 digits, so it would be perhaps a 10% discount. Half a penny?
Are you amending the resolution or outside of the resolution, just suggesting these are the targets you're looking for pricing?
I think we should put it in the resolution if it's gonna have any meaning. What do you think, Brett?
Are you gonna have a special meeting on the 19th?
I think we're, no.
Because that was the designated pricing date.
Right.
And that's the only time you're actually gonna have the pricing and be able to make a decision on the basis of actual pricing.
Yeah. I think, well. I think we should amend the resolution. And this way we'll be all set for the 19th. What do you all?
So if they do not meet those targets, then you're just not gonna participate.
No, I think we can set up a special meeting if we decide to participate.
You can always join, right?
Well, no, they're gonna need to give an indication that same day. Or at the latest the next morning, because they have to lock it in before the energy prices move. It's a fairly fluid market, energy futures. Or do we just send a message that,
Well, one thing that occurred to me while we were talking about this was, I'm a full supporter of
if you could speak up, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. One thing that occurred to me while we were going over this was, you know, I'm a full supporter of the CCA. I think it's been a good deal, except what happened with Columbia Utilities. There's a soft cost that no one has ever really extrapolated for all of our legal expenses and everything else. And how much did that raise the cost per kilowatt hour from what we had locked in? And so I don't know how much we spent, whether, you know, how much more it was, but I'd like to be in a position where we don't have that happen again.
Yeah. That was an unfortunate thing where that energy supplier was caught in the middle of the dramatic change in energy
Right.
supply pricing and didn't fulfill the full contract. That said, people who joined the program during that contract period saved more money in the 13 months, I think, that they were the supplier than we had imagined that people would for the 3 years.
Okay.
It's not to say what happened was acceptable.
Well, but
because
it
they
costs,
didn't have enough
but it costs us
collateral.
money too.
Costs a little bit of money, but just a reminder to folks on that contract, in June is when the settlement
This past
amounts. No, in the upcoming June.
Oh, the upcoming, okay.
Upcoming June, you'll see the settlement amounts will be sent to those members who were a part of the program. It's not a lot of money, but it's in addition to the savings that they received. So yes, you're right, that should never happen, but they did, even still, and we did, even still, have some savings.
Well, I guess my point is, I think trying to come up with an incentive would be a good thing in the event that there's some catastrophic situation like last time.
Mhm.
And I mean, the prices aren't that much different, but it would be nice to bring them.
Close
down.
the gap.
Close that gap, is a good way to describe it.
I guess the question is whether or not we give them that ultimatum, meet it, or not. I hear reluctance. in
Yeah,
your voice.
I'm reluctant. I think
Yeah.
that the program's good. I recognize like the cost is an important consideration here. I don't know that half a cent is as big of a thing to make me walk away from the environmental impact of having this be the default. And if people want to opt out,
They can.
that still exists, right?
Yeah.
I think that it's still a really good thing for our community to be doing. I think sending the message that we would prefer more competitive pricing is a good idea, but for me, I don't know that it would be enough to choose to not participate if it's a half-cent difference from what we're setting. I think, like I said, I think it's good if we can do whatever we can to make sure that it is
Well,
competitive
you know,
possible.
if we were the only municipality, it'd be one thing, but if there are other municipalities that are, it makes Jewel have to think about having to come to the table
Well, there is
a
at
little
least
more
one.
aggressively.
There is at least one
Yeah.
that's passed a resolution.
And that's sort of what I was
at a lower
asking, is
amount.
like, if it's just whatever other municipality that is in us, like how much sway does that have?
So far.
I don't know how many
So
customers
far.
that can,
Yeah.
makes for, I don't know what the other
Yeah.
municipality is, but that might be something to see if we can connect with Jewel to say, or even some of the other municipalities, if we want to put some pressure on that way. I think we should do whatever we can to make sure that the prices are as competitive as they can be. But I still think the principles of it are, they have their own value.
So shall we compromise and send a message to Jewel? We'd like to see this get down to 10.5, 11.5. And we're going to make a decision when we see the pricing come in, whether we're in or out.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's a really fair way of doing it.
Okay. All right, let's look at the resolution we do have, make sure it's appropriate for what we're contemplating here. We've entered an agreement as amended between the town and Jewel Assets to serve as the Community Choice Aggregation Program administrator, pursuant to local law number 1 of 2019 to establish a CCA program. There's on file a form of right of 3 providing for 2025 CCA Energy Program RFP commencing in July. Pursuant to that agreement modified by right of 3, Jewel proposes to conduct a competitive solicitation process pursuant to the Jewel Agreement and the PSC CCA order on behalf of participating Hudson Valley communities. I think there's about 10 of us. Will provide the results of the pricing to the town board for its consideration. Now therefore be it resolved by the town board, Supervisor Robert McKeon, or in his absence, Deputy Supervisor William Hamel is hereby authorized and directed to execute right of 3 to the Jewel Agreement substantially in the form on file with the clerk with such insubstantial changes as may be approved. Supervisor, or in his absence, the deputy is hereby authorized and directed to authorize Jewel Assets to conduct a RFP for the purpose of soliciting energy provider services. Jewel, in its role as administrator, shall among other things manage the energy procurement process and issue the RFP, including the amended form of the ESA. They shall make a recommendation to the municipality for award with bids to be evaluated based upon compliance with the specs, including without limitation price and term parameters, and suppliers' acceptance of all material terms of the ESA, provided, however, that the town will make the final award decision. The supervisor, the town clerk, and its officers and agents are hereby authorized and directed for, and in the name and behalf of the town of Red Hook, to do all acts and things required. I'm not sure the language goes far enough, Chris, to, I mean, it gets us to going out to bid, I'm not sure.
Right, the original discussion was that you were gonna have a special meeting on the 19th, but if that's not your desire, then you need to do something further in terms of authorization, which is fine. You know, just extend the authorization to approve pricing based on X, you know. Either that or you're gonna have to meet again. That's really the only choice. You either have to pick a number and say, we're not gonna award above that, right?
Yeah,
Or you're gonna have to meet and, decide at the time, based on what you get in front of you.
yeah. And I think we've decided that our default, we would like it to be 50% New York State renewable with the other 50%
Right.
being national, so, I mean, I think we should focus on that. I mean, if it comes in more than 11, I don't think we want that either, right?
No, but I think that what they're doing is they're sort of, I would hope that they're being sort of honest, that these are about where the prices are going to come in.
Well,
If it's
they-
gonna be above, we still have the opportunity to make that decision, right? Like, that's still.
Well, right, but
we're
I
not
mean,
locked
this
in
is,
from this.
yeah, but future, energy futures prediction, if they knew, they'd be,
Yeah,
Right, so, but you really have to make this decision on the 19th when the pricing comes in.
yeah.
What day of the week
You
is that?
can't wait for another
27.
meeting. You have to be in or out.
Yeah. All right, I'd like to suggest that we,
Maybe we should just meet on the 19th.
go ahead and, authorize this resolution, which would be 14, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And just say, add some language, approval of which is conditioned upon the results. And our final whereas clause are now therefore be resolved. Let's see, maybe in 4, Jules shall make a recommendation to the municipality for award with bids to be evaluated based upon compliance with the specifications of the RFP, including without limitation price and term parameters and suppliers, acceptance of all material terms of the ESA, provided however that the town will make the final award decision
Based on funding.
which may result in,
Are you trying to avoid another meeting?
no,
And specify something, do you want language?
yeah, well,
What are you gonna do?
no, I think we're gonna have to have that meeting. I just wanna make sure that this resolution is very clear that there's a chance we may not participate in the next contract.
I think that's clear enough. I mean, I think that's what the resolution is intended for, is to say you're authorized to issue an RFP, but it's your decision whether you're gonna make an award.
that's number 4, provided that the town will make the final.
Right.
I'm not loving that language, but if you think it's clear enough, if you're comfortable with it.
Well, what are you
Yeah, and I
concerned
think if
with?
you're gonna schedule another meeting for the 19th, then,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because I think it's pretty clear, right? It's gonna say they're going to recommend the award and then we make a decision about it. If it's something we don't like, we can decide to not participate.
Well, just the way I read it, Jacob, is, okay. Jules shall make a recommendation to the municipality for award with bids to be evaluated. So with the specifications of the RFP, including without limitation price and term parameters, and supplier's acceptance of all material terms of the ESA provided. However, the town will make the final award decision. And it really, the phraseology really speaks to which supplier as opposed to participation. I'm wondering if we could have some participation language, Chris.
So you wanted to say we'll make the final decision as to whether to award an electricity supply agreement in this round?
Yeah. Yeah, I want to clear that it's not suggesting we're just having a say in who gets awarded, but whether or not we are participating.
Okay, does that language feel better?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, so resolution 14 as modified. Okay,
Fine.
who would like to move it?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Would you like to make a verbal resolution to set the meeting for the 19th? We can always cancel it, right?
I would, I'm just trying to remember what time of day it was last time that we had pricing and
My
they do it
recollection was
quick.
the morning.
Well, they get pricing, I think around 11 o'clock.
I remember talking on a call, it was like early evening, like 4 or 5.
It was an earlier,
Six.
yeah, it was an earlier
I think
meeting.
we were, yeah.
With-
So, and that day we have a lot of meetings. We have ZBA, we have CAC,
Alex and I are not available in the evening. I'm available during the day, he's not here. He's
Yeah,
in the office.
okay.
CAC's tomorrow, there's no CAC meeting next week.
Oh, I'm sorry, I have the wrong, the third, is that court?
Good, it's Wednesday.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's,
No,
the
that's
court's on
Thursday.
Thursdays.
That's on Thursday, court in the village
Yeah.
is Wednesday.
okay, so let's go ahead and entertain a motion to set a special meeting for 3:30. Can you do that?
It's on my calendar, should be able to. I don't have anything on my calendar right now, so I can
Okay.
block it off.
Will this be a long meeting?
No.
Okay, because I have to leave
Yeah.
at 4.
Yeah, no,
Okay,
no, 5
good.
minutes,
That
5
works for me.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks.
We'll know pretty quick.
Okay.
I don't know about
Thanks.
Julia or Christine,
Yeah,
Okay.
but
okay,
Will
well,
Julia
the
be
three of
back?
us.
Will she be back? She won't be
I don't know,
back.
oh, she's coming like at the end of next week or something.
Well, she left on the 6th or the 7th, and she's going
All right,
for
we'll,
11 days.
So,
push
yeah,
it.
she-
3:30?
And Christine would be,
Yeah, well.
you know,
Was that a yes?
Yeah,
It works for me.
3:30.
Okay, the
Yeah.
19th.
schedule.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. All right. Who wants to talk about the police contract? Do you want to talk about 4-hour minimums whether they're working at the court or not?
Did the village ever provide us the information on this?
No, I think we have, and also I think our bookkeeper can help us a little bit with that. But no, we don't have the information of how much they work on when they're called in for the 4 hours, how long they're typically here. Again, that's the agreement between them and their contract.
Why can't we just do an amend this IMA for now,
We can,
just to do the 100,000 for general police services and exclude until we,
court, no, we can't exclude court, we need them in court.
Yeah.
But we could just say.
Could we split it? Could we say that we'll guarantee 2 hours and everything that they're actually here for, and the village can cover the other 2? It's their cost, they negotiated this. Why
Yeah.
are we paying for something that we're not
We're
giving
not.
service for?
yeah, they negotiated a CBA without letting us know
It's like they shouldn't be building our guaranteed price into this.
that's.
If they want to guarantee that they're going to pay that amount, we can pay what they're actually doing.
All right, so Jacob proposed to modify the MOU. The town agrees to additionally pay $75 hour regular time or $95 hour time overtime for additional hours worked in special cases and when providing court officer services for the town of Red Hook Justice Court. And then we basically would take out the
Strike out
rules,
the-
strike out the next sentence, blah, blah, blah. For example, an officer, blah, 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 unless you want to say, for additional hours worked in special cases while providing court officer services for the town of Reddick Justice Court with a minimum.
I wouldn't have a minimum. I mean, they should be here as long as court is in session.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the reality. And
Right.
sometimes the parking lot's full and
Right.
it's busy, and sometimes it's not.
yeah, no, I think Jacob's just referencing that he's willing to pay the
It's
village 2 hours.
Sort of meeting in the middle, right? It's saying that, because that's what this is, right? It's, we're sort of contributing to whatever they're paying for this, right? And I think that there's a recognition that like they are providing a service, right? Sometimes it's gonna be more, sometimes it's gonna be less. And I'm sure that they're saying, you know, they're gonna be paying them that amount. So sort of recognizing they're serving our courts to say, hey, we'll cover half of it.
But not
And then we'll
long,
cover more if it's more, but if it's.
but not long from now, it's gonna be all of our courts.
It's true. And I think we'll wanna revisit this at that time.
Excuse me.
I mean, do you think it should be no minimum? Is that sort of what you're?
Well,
I think
the question I had was, what was the basis for your minimum? I mean, you
Yeah.
keep track of your hours, you give us a monthly report on all your calls. I mean, I have a general idea of how much they're going out and doing things on the street, but I don't have a sense of how long court normally is. And I do know that sometimes I drive by here on a Thursday night and the parking lot is full, and it could, and both justices are here, and they're switching up,
Yeah.
and it could take a while, and then there'll be times when it's light. And my sense is, my personal preference is pay them the hourly rate for which they're here, rather than covering the cost of something they negotiated without letting us know. I mean, because in the future, we should have been at the table, at least for that portion of the bargaining, right? And then at least we would have had some skin in the game, and we would have been able to say, you know, the collective bargaining agreement would have had input from us related to that particular service. And it's gonna have to next
Yeah,
time.
and I think where I'm coming from is that it's already sort of settled right now, right? Like they negotiated
did
this,
it.
this is what they agreed to
Yeah.
pay. And it's sort of splitting, right? It's saying we shouldn't be locked into that. We want to contribute, we want to
Yeah.
make sure that we're paying for what we're getting from that.
So you're saying split the baby on
And
this?
and it's sort of, yeah, it's sort of reducing it, because I think 2 hours is a reasonable, if you want to set a minimum, it's much
Yeah.
more reasonable than 4 hours.
Yeah.
You know, I go back to this is easily solved if they just hop in the patrol car and patrol the town
Yeah.
for the rest of the 4-hour thing.
Well,
We're all good here, we're paying for
Yeah.
service as
I mean, if
opposed
they're willing to do that, then it's dedicated patrolling.
I think-
There's a little bit of a, you know, if something happens in the village, I'd rather them go
but they
respond
do
to
that
but-
but Robert, we're paying for that anyway. They go till midnight. And so if they have 2 officers here for court, they're still gonna have to have officers responding to emergency calls. I mean, it's just the way it is. So they probably built this price in to cover the fact that they're gonna have extra officers on those 2 evenings of the month.
I don't have a problem with the, yes, they do have 2 officers patrolling often. I don't have a problem with paying for officers patrolling, and if we have 3 at one point, that's fine. The issue I think we have is we're paying for services that's not being rendered.
That's right.
And we didn't get a chance to negotiate. And this is not like, you know, when there's an emergency and our highway crew needs to go out and, you know, tackle. This is on a regular basis. They know that they have court twice a month. So, and again, it's no statement on the officers because they're terrific, for sure.
It would be great to have that information from the village in terms of what their expectations are whenever court ends.
Yeah, I mean, if I had
Because maybe they're already doing that, we're just not
Well,
aware, but it'd be good to know
exactly.
and have that information.
See, if I had that data,
This agreement doesn't say that that's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd like to, yeah, why don't we just strike that language there that relates to the minimum. And we can keep the sentence, any additional hours as specified will be described in the monthly billing. And then if they want to do the additional hours as patrolling, then I think it solves the issue. Does it?
Well,
Make us happy?
the village
The
would have
village,
great.
yeah.
No, I mean, from our standpoint.
They don't have court 3 all the time, but they have a lot of months where there's 3 courts
Yeah,
with criminal.
yeah,
Just,
yeah,
Here-
for the quantity, yeah.
there's
Oh, there, oh,
2 judge traffic.
V&T.
And then the third.
VNTs and
okay.
then-
So
I thought it was just discreetly, one Thursday was just traffic and one Thursday was just criminal.
No,
No, so there's a possibility, a lot of times it's criminal, so there's 3 in a month.
yeah,
And
and
knowing-
maybe that's the solution, is to stack the courts one on top of each other.
Because it
So
did
that
used
they're
to be,
working,
it
yeah.
did used to be what, like the second?
Well, they do have that, they'll
Yeah,
have
second.
Mansfield and then Malvern.
And just judging from the number of like criminal incidents that are in the reports, I'd be really surprised if there's an additional 4 hours for a date.
Well, the only thing that's not, but what's not visible is that many of the criminal matters are, the arresting officers are either the county
Yeah.
sheriff's deputy or the state police, often the state police. They still come to this town court if it happened in this town. And that, when we get our monthly report, we know how many arrests our officers made,
Good point.
but it doesn't really, and it's very hard to
Could be
know.
more. Yeah.
That's why I wanted the data, because it would have been very helpful
Yeah.
to making a decision.
Yeah, it would be good to know what they're tracking in terms of how many hours are actually present here.
That's all I
What
wanted. I
happens,
want
and
to know.
I would like
I'm
to
not
know
sure,
about
I'm
the
not
overtime too. I would like to know how that's being,
Yeah.
triggered.
Well,
Just good
maybe
to
our
know.
court clerks will have the data.
Yeah.
Because when we looked at the yearly reports that Lisa and Tom submitted to us, there were some rather large numbers on traffic, and I was like, I know what I see from the Red Hook Police Department on a monthly basis, and I know that the vast majority of those are either state police or county deputy sheriffs.
All right.
So that, a lot of those numbers, when I looked at, when I compared it just in my mind from what I see on a monthly basis from the village police, there is a lot of activity from the other 2 police departments.
Yeah. So I think it makes sense to strike it and
Okay.
Yeah.
go back to the village, and if they say, no, we have to do this, we say we want the data.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay. So that's as modified, striking the language,
It's just that one part of this.
the two sentences after services for the town of Reading. Justice court, and they reference the 4-hour minimum. That's resolution 15,
15.
Yeah.
dated February 11th. Would like to move it.
I so moved.
Who would like to second it?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye, aye, aye. Okay, then just very quickly, I don't think we have a resolution, just a motion to approve, and I apologize, I have to go back to our original. Police, there's the agreement. We'll do the agreement dated today. This is just the contract I referenced. Simply all we need is a motion to approve the contract, so we can sign it tomorrow. For the folks at home, we've received grant funding, $275,000 from the New York State Clean Energy Communities Program. They are grant dollars that we've received because we've done so many high-impact actions, and you receive points for it. We are applying those monies towards the Whittingham Community Solar so that we can build it in such a way that we can expand our community solar options for our residents and perhaps small businesses as well. This contract relates to the upgrades to the grid. This is essentially not a negotiable contract. So simply need a motion to approve. Authorize me to sign the contract. It's a standardized contract for interconnection of new distributed generation units and/or energy storage systems with capacity of 5 megawatts or less, connected in parallel with utility distribution systems.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, another very ministerial thing we need to do is applicants, when they need a name for a private road or a public road that's been approved, they need to come to the town just as a safety net to make sure that there isn't another road with a similar name or a same name that would confuse people. It's mostly for 911 safety purposes. And Bard College, as part of its improvements that it's doing, this has a private road named the Ralph Ellison Walk. And so it's part of the approval of a project that was granted back in 2023 by the Planning Board. Dutchess County Department of Emergency Response has confirmed that there are no conflicts with the names, with the proposed name rather, and so therefore the town doesn't either. The town board hereby approves the name of Ralph Ellison Walk for the private roadway as shown on the site plan. And that's 16, and I so move. Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Okay, Last thing is a resolution authorizing, we worked with, when we did the early refunding of our serial bonds, we worked with Beth Ferguson, who's now with Fiscal Advisors and Marketing. And we will be looking at financing down the road for the community solar project. And so we'd like to hire Beth's firm to help us also with services, ongoing services, as it relates to our finances. Okay, this is 17, yeah?
Yes.
February 11th, 2025. We have need of services from a registered municipal financer advisor from time to time in connection with funding for an issuance of its obligations under the local finance law. As a reminder to folks, you'll see in the presentation, we have a very terrific AA rating. Comptroller's office said we have a 0 financial risk as of the last report. Okay, who's moving?
I'll move it.
Who's second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Folks, there were a lot of words there, but I think we're finished with our business for tonight. Before I entertain a motion to go into attorney-client, I'd like to thank you all for coming tonight. I hope you enjoy your holiday coming up, Valentine's. You get to spend it with somebody you love if it's not your partner. Stay healthy. We have just about every virus imaginable going around. I heard that it's the worst flu season since 2002. And Jacob, you may not remember, but in 2017, the flu visited Town Hall. And it visited one office, and then the following day it took everybody else out. Dear Jackie Fennerly greeted people. It was almost like she was the hostess. She greeted people in the front door and said, "Hi, we can't do anything for you right now, but please leave your paperwork and we'll try to get it done for you. So I would just say, thanks for your patience. If the department that you're trying to reach out to this week or next week, if they're not as responsive as they normally are, because we've got a lot of viruses running through the building, so stay healthy. Okay. With that, does anybody want to make any public comments? If not, I'd like to entertain a motion to go into attorney-client. Is there a second?
Reluctantly second.
Reluctant second?
Aye.
All in favor? Aye. Good night, everyone.